Good morning, everyone. Today is August the 3rd, Thursday, 2023. We're going to be discussing my main man, Voddie Baucham. Y'all know I listen to a lot of Voddie Baucham stuff. I do post a lot of his stuff, especially in the YouTube shorts, TikTok shorts, all of that stuff. You know, like he's a great teacher, great leader. He used to have his own church out there in Dallas, Texas. But it seems like he's been doing a lot of interviews this week. Well, I wouldn't say, a lot of his interviews, recent interviews have been posted this week. And actually, I was just watching one right before I got on to this particular live stream. He was doing one with the Babylon Bee. I did see the one that he did with Ben Shapiro. And I think that the reason why you're seeing so many of these interviews are going up with Voddie Baucham is because he's only in America just a few times a year. And I guess whenever he comes, a lot of people decide that, let's go ahead and get an interview with him before he heads back to Zambia for months at a time. And as you guys come in, please go ahead and hit that like button. We have Sister Sheila in the house, and we have Brother Marshall K. Johnson in the house. Welcome, welcome, you guys. Welcome. So you guys know that Voddie Baucham can be very controversial, and it depends on who you're asking, right? He talks about the racial issues, stuff like CRT, social justice issues, and sometimes he kind of, gets up under people's skin sometimes. And he does it in all righteousness, but some people don't like Voddie Baucham because he openly talks about and he exposes the falsehood of these racial agendas that you see from people that they're trying to promote or trying to purport, especially within the church, especially with Black people in the church. We also got my sister TT Mal up in the house. She says, I've seen a lot of Marxism with the NAACP movement. Yeah, so today, Voddie Baucham is going to be exposing, three flags, right? Say rebuke and reproof says chicken and grits for breakfast. He Black. All right. Good morning. Good morning, Doki Bible Club. And, again, I want to shout out Doki Bible Club, who is a faithful member. I wish I had my soundboard with me right now. He'll be getting a horn right now. He has that badge, and he's kept that badge for a while, and he's actually gifted other people with the memberships, the badge. And, for people who don't know what the memberships is all about, if you guys go to my channel, I do got some content that is set to members only. So if you guys want to see kind of like some of my more controversial, I'll put it like that, videos, some of those live streams that I've done, videos I've done, I talk a little bit more free, talk a little bit more open on my members only content. Certain conversations I believe shouldn't be accessible to everyone, especially when I'm talking about talk. I'm talking about racial issues. I'm talking about issues that's in the church. Look at this old lady here talking about some too early for the sound fest. See, Sister Sheila be hating. She hate on my music. She hate on my sound effects. I still love her though. I still love Sister Sheila. Actually, me and her, we might even be around the same age. She might have an old soul. That's what people call an old soul. You just, because I ain't gonna lie, I do got an old soul. Sometimes I'll be like, man, I want to hear all of that noise in the morning. Kids with all of that booming about. Here go TT Mouse. She says MLK was a Marxist. Yeah, Marxists donate to MLK, and he didn't believe in the resurrection of Jesus nor the virgin birth. Oh yeah, that's beef. That is beef. All right, well, listen, let's go ahead and get ready to get into this particular article from the Christian Post. And the headline is Voddie Baucham identifies 3 red flags. Churches are capitulating to modern neo-Marxist ideology. And this is part 1. I don't know how many parts are going to be a part of this particular article series. I guess that's it, if you want to call it that. Oh, Sister Sheila says that. She says, no, I'm 61. Oh, you same age as my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law just turned 61. All right, I'm a cool on the old jokes. All right, I mean, you still you got a piece of youth left. I mean, just a little piece. Almost my mama age. I think my mom may be a few years older than you. All right, let's go ahead and read this article. Prominent pastor and author Voddie Baucham has identified 3 signs a church is abandoning scriptural truths for modern neo-Marxist ideology in a culture where truth is under attack and Christianity is increasingly marginalized. And if you guys have not partook in the particular poll that I have, I want you guys to go to the chat right now, take a look at that poll, and let me know what you think. Has Marxism infiltrated the church? 67% of you say that it has. And I think 33%, I can't even see the rest of this. All I can see is the yes and the no column. I can't even see the bottom column where it says not sure. But looking at the numbers, well, actually it just went up. 71% of you guys say it has. And I think 29% of you has said that you're not sure. All right. Good morning, Miss Cherry. Good morning, Miss Cherry. She said that doesn't bother her. All right. All right. Y'all be nice to Sheila. She might be the oldest in the chat. Marshall K says he also didn't believe in a literal hell too. I'm talking about Martin Luther King. So yeah, y'all go ahead and partake in that particular poll. Let me know if you guys believe that neo-Marxism ideology has infiltrated our current church. In an interview with the Christian Post, the 54-year-old dean of theology at African Christian University in Zambia highlighted several concerning trends in modern churches that he fears are eroding the foundations of Christianity, beginning with a de-emphasis of the Bible, where there is a lack of commitment to systemically teach and exposit the scriptures. I'm going to see if I can read this like Voddie Baucham, right? There's not a commitment to a systemic exposition of the Bible. And what we hear from the pulpit is rooted and grounded in more psychology and philosophy than the text and theology, end quote, Baucham said. Y'all let me know how good did I do just now? Did that sound like Voddie or not? Did I sound like Voddie or not? All right, let's continue. So the second red flag involves the church's alignment with post-Christian culture. Baucham noted that some leaders preach messages that resonate with the values and agendas of the secular world, including issues related to LGBTQ plus concerns. Yeah, and it's crazy that I remember back in the day. She said, I need a little bit more bass to imitate Voddie. Yeah, I do. I do. I need to put a Darth Vader mask on to get it, just to tweak it just a little bit. But yeah, I remember back in the day, although there was some foolishness going on in the church, but one thing that you could get maybe about 30 years ago when you walked into just about any church, probably like in the 80s and 90s, late 80s, early 90s, you would get almost like a fire and brimstone message. Now, we knew that the bigger churches, which was like so few and far and in between, you knew that you were going to get the watered down, emotional centered gospel, if you want to call it that. Almost like the Joel Osteen type stuff. I mean, Even T.D. Jakes back in the day, he was a fire and brimstone preacher. But it seems like that nowadays, a lot of churches have really bowed the knee to a lot of these neo Marxist ideologies. And they're trying to become so relevant to what the world has made relevant. Social issues about sexuality, and people are so, I wouldn't say that they're so afraid. Well, I believe that they do operate out of fear. I believe that this is the foundation of why a lot of churches have changed their message. But a lot of churches are teaching this let's just go along and get along message. Let's be friends with the world, because if we be friends with the world, then maybe we can draw them in, which is not found in the Bible. The Bible teaches us to be opposite. You begin to hear things in the church. Oh, I'm sorry, I already read that part. Oh no, I didn't read this part. Quote, you begin to hear things in the church from the pulpit, from the leadership role, that resonate with this post-Christian culture. For example, the LGBTQ plus whatever agendas, end quote, he said. Finally, he said apologizing for essential Christian doctrines is another red flag indicating a departure from true biblical Christianity. And what's so crazy is that I've heard of people talk about how their churches have slipped into this. They changed their message. They started to tweak their view on the gospel and the completed work of Christ and how we should view things in the world. And I've heard of people leaving some of their churches because of these slight changes that they've made. And I've heard that there's some people who stayed in their churches all because of the pastor. They have sacrificed true biblical teaching, a true biblical exegesis of the text, in order to try to find some middle ground with the world. Rebuke and Reproof says, never trust a liberal, not with your kids, money, and church leadership, politics, and no capacity. Yeah, and I agree with that. Finally, he said apologizing for, I'm sorry, I already read that. Okay, quote, we're apologizing for the quote unquote creation myth. We're apologizing for the gospel. We're apologizing for the Reformation. We're apologizing for Christian morality, these sorts of things. These are some signs that things have gone very wrong, he said. And you guys know that we covered that, right? Remember, we covered that actually with my live stream Sunday. Jamal Bryant, he's apologizing. Oh, I got blood on my hands in the pulpit because I've said some things about LGBTQ people. Oh, that heretic. Guy's a joke. And we see a lot of that happening. And well, I mean, Jamal Brown ain't the only ones. I think that there's been some other people who've done that as well. I think even T.D. Jakes have given somewhat of a soft apology on that. Yes, and you guys go ahead and hit that like button. Great to see you, Sister Cherry and Crystal and Brother Steve. Thank you guys. All right, let's continue. A May 2021 survey from evangelical pollster George Bardner found that just 6% of Americans have a quote-unquote biblical worldview. Similarly, survey data compiled in January 2020 showed that only 2% of millennials hold a biblical worldview, even though 61% identify as Christian. Wow, says that only 2% hold a biblical worldview. But, you got a lot of people. There's a lot of people who call themselves Christian, and they don't even have a biblical worldview. All right, let's continue. Baucham, who was gearing up for a revised release of his 2004 book, The ever-loving truth, can faith survive in a post-Christian culture? Explain that for many decades, the Western church has assumed and then forgotten the essence of the gospel, leading to a foundation built on shifting sand rather than the solid rock of Christ. The ramifications of that, he lamented, are becoming increasingly viable in today's post Christian America. Quote, for a long time, because of the assumptions of the culture, one of the things that we did was assume the gospel, Baucham said. The message of the gospel is an offensive message in a lost and dying world, but we assumed the gospel. Then, after we assumed the gospel, we forgot the gospel and we left the gospel behind. And we began to build churches. And really, I use that term loosely because in many instances, they aren't churches. And gather people based on commonalities that were not gospel centered. We gathered people because we liked the same kind of music or we were in the same social class. We had those things in our foundation instead of having the gospel as our foundation, in quotes. And I totally agree with what he said. I totally agree with what he said. You know? Yeah, Miss Cherry said that's a fact, but God knows who his sheep are. Oh, yeah. We don't know. We don't know who God's sheep is. That's why we have to preach the gospel. Not to get to know who the sheep are, but because that, we're commanded. We're commanded to preach the gospel. But yeah, let's kind of unpack what Voddie was saying in this last paragraph that I just read. Quote from him. First it says that the gospel is an offensive message in a lost and dying world. So we always have to remember that. We also have to remember that this gospel is not something that is widely accepted. And quite frankly, as we continue to live on this earth, this gift of life, this gift of breath that the Lord has given us and that he gives us every day. As long as we have the breath of life and we continue to preach the gospel, we're going to have opposition and pushback. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Because why? This is a lost and dying world. So we're not looking to change this world to try to make the world a better place. No, we're trying to warn people about the pending judgment and then preach the gospel to God's true sheep. Just like Miss Cherry said, right? We're here to preach the gospel to God's true sheep and let them know about the new heavens and the new earth that is going to come down for those who have been called out by God. And then he also says that, we've gathered people based on commonalities. Again, y'all hear me say this all the time. This is why I don't do the soul brother handshake. I don't do the we black, we same. I don't preach none of that stuff. Because I don't want people being comfortable in sin just because they're black. Oh, you don't understand. See, I grew up in the backwoods of Alabama, and I saw white supremacy firsthand, and white folks just do something to me, and white, black, white, blah, 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 all of that crazy stuff. No. You don't get a pass for being a racist. Well, I can't be racist because I'm black. Nonsense. I don't care what color you are. You can be a racist. You don't get a pass just because you have had some things happen to you as a black person. Oh, you don't understand. All my life I had to fight. Man, you're going to keep fighting too. Where in the Bible does the Lord promise that there isn't going to be any racism? There isn't going to be any hard times. There isn't going to be any jerks. Christ said that the enemies, that your enemies are going to be those of your own household. So what makes you think that you're going to be able to go out into the world and you're going to have more friends out in the world than people who actually support you and love you in your own house. If Jesus said that some of your biggest enemies will be those in your own household. Baucham, who previously served as pastor of Grace Family Baptist Church in Texas, stressed that the gospel message is considered quote unquote offensive to the world. And in an in-depth attempt to avoid offense, many churches have neglected its transformative power. He warned that such churches lacking a gospel-centered foundation are ill prepared for the challenges of the post-Christian era. Man, listen, y'all have to understand. Why do you think that our nation, our communities in particular, we can see it in our communities of how they're slipping into degradation? Some of the stuff that we wouldn't dare allow on TV, some of the stuff that we wouldn't dare allow our children to wear or partake in, certain shows, movies, how now it's just infested with our culture. This has become what they call American culture now. It's supposed to be American culture now with all of the degradation and all of the crazy stuff and nonsense and violence that we see in our everyday lives. The church isn't prepared. The church really is not prepared, and the more and more we continue with these ideologies, I mean, the church is going to become less and less effective. Man, listen, I need to try to wrap this up. Because, man, I can go on and on about this. You know, y'all know I get fired up about these type of topics. All right. Quote, in this post-Christian era, where we're all being sort of painted with the same brush, people who have not relied on the gospel to build solid foundations are seeing their sheep scattered. They're really not legitimate sheep in the first place. And they also don't really know how to respond, because the response in many instances has been, no, we're not like them. And quote unquote, them, of course, are conservative, Bible-believing evangelicals, those people who have always been vilified by the culture at large. Yeah, so here's the thing. Yeah, they paint Christians with this big broad brush. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If especially if you're a man, and I've heard this a lot, especially coming from Black people in the Black community. If you're a Black man and you're in a church, you're quote unquote effeminate. You're quote unquote on a down low. There's no power in the churches. All of this silly stuff. All of the women are closet lesbians. They're so masculine. Every church in America worships white Jesus. Y'all know all of that stuff. Y'all hear all of that. And they just paint with that big broad brush. And I think that, you know, when people ended up getting painted with that broad brush, our instinct is to kind of separate ourselves. Oh, no, we ain't like those fire and brimstone, complementarian Christians. You know, we believe differently. Such a huge divide in the church. Quote, but that's not working anymore, he said, because it's not enough to just hold firmly to the truths of the gospel and not to hold firmly to those things that the culture finds offensive. Any identification now with Christianity, which is seen as sort of the ultimate hegemonic boogeyman in modern neo-Marxist culture, is offensive. So a lot of people are caught off guard because of the compromises that they have made a long time ago that look like they were paying off. Baucham issued an urgent call for a bold return to the core of Christianity, the unadulterated gospel. He emphasized the need for more churches to stand firm on biblical truths without compromise, even in the face of cultural pressure and vilification. Quote, we need to prepare ourselves for the opposition. Not only the opposition coming, but the opposition that's already here, he said. We need to know what we believe and why we believe it. We need to be prepared to give an answer to those who ask us for a reason for the hope that is within us. We need to be prepared to speak this post. We need to be able. We need to be prepared to speak to this post-Christian culture. Finally, we need to be prepared to accept the consequences of doing so, which are unpleasant. End quote. And that is the end of this article. Let me go ahead and check this poll real quick. All right, so it says that I asked a question in the poll here on YouTube in the chat section. I asked, has Marxism, infiltrated the church? So far, 58% of you has said yes, and 42% of you has said you are not sure. And actually, the poll just it just changed. So so I'm glad to see that people are partaking in that poll, letting us know. Yeah, TT Miles says that's why you only see only 2% believe in a biblical worldview, and that is in reference to what we were reading earlier about people who have a biblical worldview out of the 61% of millennials who say that they are Christian. Yeah, Steve says the streets are raising the children. African Country said no thank you to Obama and his LGBTQ agenda. Sheila Mahone says, I changed my mind. It's a yes for me. Yeah, I think she's the one who be changing the numbers, Sister Sheila be changing the numbers, but she be doing it for the good reasons, though. TT says the sexual revolution in feminism and Marxism was brought in using social issues. Yeah, it has, and right now that is what is destroying our church. Our churches, I will say that, but Christ did say that the gates of hell will not prevail against his church, his one and only true church. And I know some people are looking, okay, well, where is it at? Is it at John MacArthur's church? Is it at Joel Osteen's or T.D. Jakes' church? When people start to ask me silly questions like that, I'm just like, yeah, I know that you really don't have a biblical worldview. And a lot of these people are unbelievers anyway when they start to ask silly questions like that. But listen, God's true church is made up of Jew and Gentile, those who actually believe in Christ, those who read that Bible and they live according to that word and that text. And I don't care what you call yourself. I don't care what you call yourself, whether you call yourself an Israelite, you call yourself just a Christian, or you call yourself a Jew for Jesus or whatever. If you don't believe in that book and you don't believe in the gospel and you don't spread the gospel the way that the Bible instructs us to spread the gospel with love, gentleness, but also firm, then number one, you are a part of the problem. Number two, you need to repent and come to Christ. And I mean, that's just, it's not too much more to be said about that. It's not. But Christ's church is going to prevail. God has set aside a remnant. And you guys hit that thumbs up button, just like my sister Sheila says. That's why she got a wrench. That's why she got a wrench. But yeah, this is a dying world. But listen, we can always, and this is what we need to do. We always need to rejoice in the good work of Christ. Because just like the Bible says, such were some of you. How many of y'all were out there in the world before you got saved and you were linking arms in bed with a lot of these liberal Marxists? I was. So I'm not gonna sit back and act like that. Oh, it was, I just was just born, and then this light from the eastern star was shining down on me, and and angels were surrounding my bed, and I always walked upright. No, I was wretched, filthy, nasty, all of that, on my way to hell, in all caps. On my way to hell with a all capital letters. And it was the Lord who saved me. It's the Lord who saved me. It wasn't because I got smart and I ended up just waking up and smelling the coffee and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna start following Christ. No, it was no, the Lord is the one who took me, dust me off, and said, I'm gonna use you for my glory. And I've asked the Lord, I said, Lord, just continue to keep me, continue to use me for your will. Even when my family and my friends turn against me, even if people decided they don't want to talk to me no more because of my stance on the gospel, even if I lose jobs, opportunities because of that, continue to keep me content and continue to have me even rejoice in that. That's where I am with my faith. But at the same time, we got to continue to stand firm on the gospel. And we got to be able to look at these ideologies that have crept into the church, and we got to be able to stand firm against it. We got to be able to speak out against it because people's souls are at stake. Well, anyway, guys, as I get ready to get up out of here, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And as always, like this video, please hit that like button, rate, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notifications bell, because I hear a lot of you saying that I didn't know you was live. Oh man, I came in the middle of the live stream. I came in at the end. Then I get the comments and the emails. I didn't know you went live I wish I was there. Hit that notifications bell. You're going to know 30 minutes before I get ready to hit that live button, because it's going to send you a notification. It's going to say Alton's getting ready to go live. Or if I post a video, you guys are going to say, hey, Alton posted a new video. Let me check it out. Instead of looking at it 8 months later and saying, I didn't know that you touched on this 8 months ago. That's a notification bell is for. But anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And I will see you guys next time, Lord willing. And you guys have a blessed day. All right. Take care.